Just waiting on Jay. And we'll get it started in here. Anyone actually do the homework? Anyone actually do it? Watch the movies? Anybody? 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 Is there anybody out there? Well, that was a fun, quick stream, wasn't it? I mean, I never miss a beat. When there's a chance to refute Marty Leeds on his insanity, I'll do it. I will do it. Cray cray. Hi hi. Jay's on Blatt time. Yeah, folks, stay away from Gnosticism. Stay away from characters like Marty Leeds. It's not good for you. He's a silly Willy. Yeah, he is. Silly Billy. Super silly. How goes the battle? It was a fun battle. It was fun. I mean, it's kind of easy. Gnostics are silly pants. JB wants y'all to miss the truth. I'm going to use that as a Stream Deck alert. That adding part, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 28. 28 divided by 1,962 is what? What do we have? Then what? Now what do we do? Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. That intro is catchy. Most of Hello Listener's music is catchy, so. That's a lot of numbers. The square root, though. The square root, though. Bunch of nut jobs. I was glad I got that in, though, because I was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this now. It's got to happen now.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
What? What? What did I say? Nothing. I said nothing. I just can't. Divided by logic, multiplied by phalanges. Look at the phalanges, you guys. I mean, you cannot. There's no way for you to refute this. Look at the phalanges.
You don't get to ask those questions. You don't get to ask those questions.
Sorry, I gotta properly.
You don't get to ask those questions.
There we go.
You don't.
All right. I gotta properly select the color for this. Luma key, color key, green, custom, select, color. Boom. There we go, Candy. Yeah, Candy. Oh, Candy looking creepy. Oh, oof. Oof, that ain't right. Oof. That's scary. That scared me.
Don't get to ask those questions.
That scared me. Jordan says for $5 buckaroonies, he says, you ever get Tetris effect after playing Tetris? I get that, but with gematria after your videos of the yeah, you get dreams of it. Dreams of gematria. Tell me, why was there an elephant trunk? You tell me, why was there an elephant trunk shape in Genesis if you collect all of the E's and add them up? You ever think about that? I bet you haven't thought about, dude, you haven't looked into it, obviously. Obviously, you haven't looked into any of this, because if you did, you would be of the Gnostic Academy Church of Marty Leeds. Can we bring back the Charlie Kirk effects? Well, I do have them saved on my computer, so there will be a time. Maybe his anniversary. You know what I mean? Because you can't just stop. You can't just give up, right? You can't just give up on it. That's not cool. Why was there a talking snake? And why did the snake have this many sections of bones? 365 days, 365 ribs. Okay? Charlie would have wanted it. Charlie was just getting into gematria, okay? He was looking at the Gnostic formulas and ciphers. He thought it was a time traveler, okay? Why did Charlie tell me in a text 3 consecutive Fridays in a row? One of those Fridays, by the way, was Friday the 13th, which is a whole other thing, okay? The text that I saved from Charlie, that he probably didn't think I was going to show the world, because this is like intimate exchanges, okay? Do you think it was like an accident, okay, that he texted me on 3 different occasions at 3:33, okay? There is something going on that is beyond the reality that I know of, okay? Okay. There's something else going on here. Why did he text me 3 texts in a row, 3 nights in a row, okay? Are you up? You up, question mark. Clearly leading up to the event, there was a lot going on in the mind of my friend, okay? Jay Dyer's setting up his boomer MacBook. Okay.
You don't get to ask those questions.
Okay. it's a little bit weird, okay? I wonder if Candy thinks she's in the same situation as Leela was in that episode of Futurama where Fry gets stung by a space bee. She needs some... She just needs, like, basic stuff. She needs to, like, really lean into her motherhood, you know what I mean? Okay. 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 Anyone? Anyone? Okay. That's the thing, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, here we go with the permissions again on my stupid, I just hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. I just hate it. I hate it. It's always, oh, would you like, your permissions aren't set properly on your thing. Okay. Charlie talked about the Jews a lot leading up to his death, okay? That was an accident, okay? It's not something that you just do habitually when you have never really actually done that before leading up to this. If you look at his history and the shows that he did, there was something different going on, okay? Something new. There was something new and different about Charlie leading up to those moments, those final moments. Okay. Okay. Something dark, something darker happening, okay? Mm-hmm. Come on. Come on. Come on, you got this. You got this, camera. Help me out, camera. Come on. There it is. Wait a second, that's not it. That's not it. Actually, that works too, doesn't it? Huh. Okay. 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 Jadar. Dar wave. Dar wave. Dar wave. What's up, Boomer? Yo, Boomer. Yo, Boomer. Yo, what's up, Boomer?
Yo.
What's up?
You're like full on Loggerman Hacksaw Jim Bob Duggan. Remember Hacksaw Jim Duggan?
That's right. Yeah, that's when I defeat these atheists, it gets them more mad when I'm wearing this outfit. So I'm leaning into it. Because they're like, Jim Bob, that's a redneck name. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Tell me how I evolved from a fish. I dare you.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to get you to come up on both screens here. Okay, I think you're on the... Yeah, perfect.
We good?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you being patient with me here. Are you ready to start?
I am ready.
Okay, I thought we'd start with The Killer since there's less in that one and then go to the other one.
Sure.
Yeah, I heard you were debating a bunch of Gnostics. I hope I didn't interrupt that. That could have been a good source of entertainment.
Oh, dude, yeah, go watch it back. It was oh, I'm getting hold on a second. I'm getting a feedback.
Yeah, I forgot to mute. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. It was Marty Leeds. He did another lunatic approach
he's
to
crazy.
criticizing some people and criticizing some, orthodoxy, and it's just funny to just how quickly you could just refute the nonsense, and then it just goes into numbers. So it's kind of funny.
Right. All right. I'll hit start, play a little bit of intro music, and then when we come back, we'll be live. Okay.
Let's do it. You guys okay with silence? JB, this is for Jay. Can you please unmute me in the chat? It was some lighthearted trolling. Oh,
all right. What's up, all you players? We got our good friend Hacksaw Jim Duggan with us today. He was over there. Yeah. He was over there cutting the Gnostics in half with a logic saw, not with literal saws. Jim Bob, what's up, man? Tell us what was going on in the chat before we get on our movies today. What were you doing over there?
Oh, it's just a Gnostic lunatic cult leader who was trying to attack orthodoxy and apostolic succession, and it just went into counting numbers, as it always does with Gnostics. So we had a good time in there. It was a good way to start my morning, my day.
you're on Diva Cam. So I have 007 Diva Cam, and then we also have our normal cam. So I hope you enjoy that you're coming at me from multiple angles, and we only get one view of you. I mean, you're still sexy, but like, you got to get a second camera, man. I saw Candace had 2 cameras. There was one up close and one far away. I said I got to do that, and we need to see sides of you too, all your sides.
I thought
backside.
about
We
that.
see your backside too.
Yeah, I was thinking about actually streaming, and it's just the back of my head. Just cutting to that.
You stream, but it's zoomed in on your chin, just
Right
here, a little
right.
square right here.
Well, no one actually really does profiles, so I was thinking an aggressive, like, all perfect profile shot. That could work too. Pretty artistic. I'll do something like that. You have a new camera though, I think. I was looking at your quality in the last week or two.
Two new cameras, dog.
Okay.
2 new cameras.
Nice.
Which was a nightmare to set up, but it took me about a day to get it, but I got it. All right, so we had so much fun the other day in our movie stream that I told Jim Bob to come back, and we're going to do another stream. Today we're going to do The Killer and Under the Silver Lake, both of which are interesting films in their own right. We're going to start with The Killer, and this, as we said, is a David Fincher film from last year. I think Jamie and I watched it when we were in Italy at an Airbnb, and I started getting paranoid because I felt like, I don't know, some kind of a hitman was going to come in the Airbnb. True story. In the middle of the night when we're watching this movie, somebody starts banging on the door in Rome on our Airbnb, and I go and answer it, and it's this couple with all their luggage, and they're like, "We also are scheduled to be in this Airbnb," and I'm like, no one said anything about this." I started getting nervous and paranoid. I started thinking, I'm watching the Hitman Killer movie. He talks about renting Airbnbs and how to take people out. And I'm like, okay, somebody sent these hitmen to come take us out. Turns out I didn't realize I rented a double couples Airbnb, which I didn't mean to do. So we had to spend the night with some of our friends that we didn't know. So anyway, just a silly story that came to mind. And then we're going to do the Under the Silver Lake, which is a kind of a conspiracy cult classic now. When it came out, it didn't get a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of traction. Beautiful Tristana and I covered it when it came out. But since that time, about 7 years ago, I've seen this, I would say maybe 3 times. And I watched it again. And there's always stuff I missed, new little details I noticed. So it's going to be a lot of fun to decode this with fresh eyes from Hacksaw Jim Duggan here with us. Guys, be sure and subscribe to Jim Bob. He's also listed in the show description. His channel is one of the best on YouTube. It's super entertaining. I watch Jim Bob almost every time he's streaming. So just want to give props to you.
Thank
By
you.
the way, one other little piece of props. I think you've gotten really, really good at debate. I mean,
Thanks.
you are, I would say, in the top tier now, because the way that you just cut to the chase with the atheists and the materialists, it's just, it's awesome. You're doing great, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that coming from the meanest boss there is. It's I would pay for that as a Yelp review. Yeah, it's actually fun. It's taken a while, but I realize, like, if you remove one of my weaknesses is actually being verbose sometimes, and so I've just edited down, and I'm like, okay, well, if I just cut at what's there and practice cutting at what's there, I'll get really good at chewing away their pillars. They're non-existent pillars, and it's been quite fun. Now, as you probably experienced that when you start debating, there's a moment where you kind of can lean into it. You know, you're no longer like trying things. You're actually like, it's almost like creative, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, it gets to be more of an improvisational sort of fun exercise once you kind of get past the stage of like the technicals, and probably something like music where you can kind of improvise, in music when you've gotten used to the chords and the basic structure. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that you have really, flourished in that domain. I think you're doing really good. But
Thanks.
One last question before we get into the movies. What are some of your thoughts now that you've been consistently debating for a number of years. Like, what do you think you've noticed from when you started to where you are now, say, in terms of dealing with oppositional arguments? And has anybody thrown you a curveball where you kind of had to? Because what usually happens is that at some point, even if you're the best debater in the world, like, you're going to eventually hit a point where somebody kind of does give some argument that you weren't prepared for. Sometimes it's even a really low tier atheist will just ask you or say something so kind of wild that you don't even know how to respond. You know what I mean? I remember like when JF first said something about, what if there is a planet with a computer and the computer creates beat? And I'm just like, this is so out of left field. I'm not even sure exactly what to say. What are your thoughts on that?
That happens when someone pulls me out of my wheelhouse. And so, like, for instance, someone on a panel after 2 hours of debating evolution started talking about theology, but in particular God's nature, and that's just out of my domain. It's just, I should learn to just say I can't answer that, but I try to engage a little bit to the extent I could. So there was a misstep I made the other day or a week or two ago where someone was asking about knowledge and what the ontology essentially is of knowledge in regards to God, but we wouldn't take a justified true belief view of knowledge when we're talking about knowledge of God. And I did a misstep of because of the inability to know which road to take, I basically stated colloquially that God's knowledge is like part of his nature or something. And it was just a misstep. But those kind of things are so technical that only someone like you or, people well-trained will be like, oh, that's an easy correction. But like, yeah, that's a misstep. Don't say that, basically. So, but that's like more of like an alarm goes off for me when it gets into deep technical stuff, especially like in theology, where I should just kind of know, all right, it'll look weak maybe if I just say I don't know, but that's better than saying something incorrect from my view.
Yeah. Do you find it still enjoyable, or is it starting to kind of get like, what happened with me was I just kind of got to the point where a lot of the arguments were just the same things that I heard over and over and over, and you kind of get a little tired of addressing and arguing the same position. Has that happened yet? Or are you still kind of enjoying every materialist that says the same thing every time you argue with them?
No, I still kind of enjoy it because I'm interested to see where they go once you put that stick in their wheel. I think it might be different for you because I actually disconnected.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah. I was saying I like to see where they go. Like, I'm still new in so far as going, okay, well, I make this move on the board. I want to see where they try to go. And it's kind of fun still. I think someone like you is maybe, you already see some of the moves ahead and it's just boring at that point. So it's like, okay, another question, another dumb question of like, okay, can God lift a rock? Okay, we're doing that. But that's what's kind of funny about watching you. Like I watch a lot of times I'm watching you to see where you sigh and you're just done with it, because I find that really funny.
Yeah, I like your impression. All right, this is stupid. This is dumb. I'm out of here. This is over. I'm out. This is stupid. All right, so let's go ahead.
I was going to say, but there's more time. I think right now I'm focusing so much on evolution that I was expecting, I just debated like this, supposedly high tier evolution biologist. And I thought, okay, maybe this is where I have trouble. Okay, maybe I'm deep in the water now. Like I was actually a little nervous to be sort of drowned out with technical, high granular biological terminology. That would make me look stupid. Oh, you don't know this weird term? But I found that like, well, all you really have to do is keep attacking the assumptions. Not the granular stuff like do they define things a certain way. I just realized that like every view has these assumptions, and you're just going, well, can they stand on their own? I mean, it's pretty simple. You just chew at their heels.
Yeah. All right, let's start with the most recent David Fincher film. Now, remember, guys, we did do a podcast the other day with Jim Bob where we covered a couple films, one of which was David Fincher. or was it Brian De Palma? I forgot. I already forgot what we. Well, oh yeah, we did Gone Girl, which was one of his most well known. But he's known, of course, for Alien 3, Seven, The Game with Michael Douglas, which is a great conspiracy thriller. Fight Club, Zodiac, Social Network, Dragon Tattoo, and The Killer, which is the most recent Netflix movie with Michael Fassbender as a hitman, as an assassin. And I thought there was a lot of really good sort of cinematography going on, a lot of interesting uses of colors and filters and all that. That's all kind of boring technical stuff. But the first time I watched the movie, I I didn't like it. I thought this is just more David Fincher nihilism. It's more life has no purpose. We're going to get to the famous Satanist that he cites within the first 5 minutes of the film. And so that kind of set me off on the wrong note, I guess, for the rest of the film. But I went back and watched it 2 more times, and I've actually changed my position. I actually think it's a redemption story. So I'll get to my thesis on why that is. I don't know what Jim Bob's view of the film is. He might have loved it, might have hated it. But I do want to say before we go to Jim Bob's thoughts, thank you guys in the chat. Looks like somebody gifted like 20 memberships. So appreciate that. We got about 20 new members. Shout out to all you guys. Sincere Hypocrite says, after seeing debates for more than a year, it seems like most people operate on a script and they don't actually respond to counter arguments. It's tiresome. Yeah, I think I said the other day on my stream talking about debates that people have just gotten really lazy and they don't have any interest in actually understanding the opposition's arguments. And I think one of the things that helped make me a strong debater over the years was always, especially before a formal debate, I study the other person's position very intently. And I think that mainly people are just lazy. They don't put any time into knowing the opponent's position well enough that you could state it to their satisfaction, as Bonson used to say. Jim Bob, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. What I do is listen very clearly to the words they're saying. I try to get everything right. And that's actually going to give you a weapon. If you can get what they're saying and say it back to them, you're going to get really good at destroying what they're saying because they have to eat their own words a lot of times. So, yeah, I would add that to studying their moves, listening intently to what they're saying and going, wait, you just said this, right? And they have to go, yeah, I said that. And then you eat them alive.
So, guys, if you want to support the stream, you can do so by using Streamlabs. You can send a super chat with Streamlabs. You can also super chat natively through YouTube. The link is in the show description. It's also pinned. So help us get to some of those goals that we are looking to get to there. Oops, I didn't start a goal. I'll do it here in a minute. But all right, so let's get into overall thoughts before we start dissecting the film. Jimbo, what was your thought on The Killer? Love it, hate it, mid? What do you think?
At the beginning, I didn't like it because things with really heavy voiceover to me usually is a sign of sort of like insufficient writing. But sometimes it serves a purpose. It had that feel of like Fight Club, where it's this sort of commentary dialogue of reality itself, and it is very much in that movie. It conveys a sort of nihilistic approach to reality, and it's establishing where he's at that time in the job that he's doing and what he has to tell himself to do what he's doing. That's what I thought it was conveying. I didn't even necessarily think that he really believed any of it, but rather that this is maybe what you have to believe to be in that position to some extent. And maybe it was over wordy for a reason. Maybe it demonstrates how much more you have to say to justify a view that ultimately, if you were consistent with, you wouldn't need to say anything. You'd be fully nihilistic. So I don't know. I could kind of look at that, especially the opener, from a view of like him debating himself in a sense. Like you could actually look at it again from that perspective and be like, this is what you tell yourself. This is what you're telling yourself. Do you really believe this, or are you just telling yourself this? And I actually did get a bit of the redemption element that you got at the end, even though it was like maybe slightly inverted. It's not redemption in the proper sense of repentance and this kind of stuff. But why would we expect that, right? But that's the orthodox view seeps in and goes, they always, like, it's always of inversion, even if they say something true. But Yeah, I could see the redemptive element to it for sure.
Yeah, I think you're on the right trail there, because the first time I watched it, I had the same assessment. But what I didn't notice the first time was that in the beginning, when you have this voiceover, he's super overconfident, right? He believes that he's essentially this sort of he's a Nietzschean Ubermensch. He's a god man. He says you're either one of the elite or you're one of the many, right? So you're the Ubermensch, or you're one of the many. He sees himself as this sort of perfected machine, and he's giving you this account as if like some sort of almost AI, like there's no flaws in his process of how he does his job. He's so good at it that it's almost impossible for him to make a mistake. And he admits that, yes, he is a nihilist, because all there is life and death. And there's these statistics that he cites, right? People die every day, there's new people born every day. He knows the numbers on this, and he can give you all this like readout of all this data. But at the same time, his overconfidence is really what begins to be his downfall. And this is in the context of when he cites Crowley. He says, as one person said, who I can't recall who, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So he cites Aleister Crowley. And remember, Crowley's philosophy was ultimately apotheosis, that you can and are your own God, but you have to realize that inner God power. And so after all of this, citations of stats and whatnot, and he started giving you his rational moral justification, because he says, look, the people that I kill, most of them are bad people. They don't have any real effect on the total number of people living and dying every day in the world. So who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, what's the, you don't like what I do, but it doesn't even matter. But we notice certain things that also don't make sense with this character, like sitting there eating McDonald's. Why would an elite multi-million dollar hitman guy eat McDonald's? Why would he, have this overconfidence? One of the things he should know is that this is a very delicate profession. And he says, I put in my 10,000 hours as a hitman. But he's so overconfident that we almost know he's going to make some kind of big blunder. And that's exactly what he does. He totally messes up, botches this job that he's just bragged for the last, entire night. We get the idea that he's been, preparing for a day or two for this hit in Paris, France, or whatever. And he totally botches the whole thing. So we start to think, well, wait a minute, Art, I thought you were the best hitman. I thought you were, basically infallible. And then he has this huge mistake that then kicks off almost like a sort of Rube Goldberg machine, those machines that like kick off this causal chain of all this weird things happening, which is ultimately going to lead to the total collapse of his worldview, his paradigm as this, perfect hitman. And one other thing I forgot to mention, he even mentions all these things like in this weird sort of spasmodic sort of like diatribe. He starts going into the military industrial complex, and he says, yeah, well, it's so weird that the U.S. military industrial complex claimed that sleep deprivation isn't torture. And he says, in my profession, vigilance is essential, and I can even do this with no sleep. He's like, I have to stay up all night for my, when I do a hit, and I'm basically being tortured, but I'm also like, unshakable and unstoppable. And then it all falls apart because he misses his perfect shot. And that will actually be the path to what ends up being his redemption, where he ultimately changes his view about man and reality, because he loses as a result of all this massive failure. He loses the one thing that he actually does love, which is his girlfriend. And that begins the downfall of this Nietzschean worldview, in my perspective.
Yeah, I think that was key, that that pride built up and then suddenly it collapses, like you said, this domino effect. And you actually can hear the commentary of what he says after every other thing. He's like, it's like there's another mishap and he's like, keep it together, focus on he's trying to recall his script, right? The thing that he tells himself to keep this view that he's purely mechanical. He's a machine. What do machines do? They react to stimuli and they execute commands. I'm executing command. And you watch the battle with executing command, right? And being a person. And that ends up being the redemptive quality, is that the reason he ends up doing what he's doing is, like you said, there's something called love. There's something called connectedness with this other being. So, well, maybe it was bullshit all along, this idea that we're just mechanical, little interchangeable widgets, and at the mass scale, none of it means anything, right? We're just doing this. Interesting that a mistake ultimately makes us the human. I mean, that's a common theme for everything, right? The mistake, the blunder, the blemishes is what kind of reveals that we're human. And we even see this problem, this limitation, ironic limitation of technology. The limitation of technology is that it doesn't have the natural brokenness of humanity. It's not an authentic broken thing, right? We're broken, we're fallen. And I think that was a theme that was there, whether they knew it or not, is the fallen aspect of man. Even if you thought you were purely mechanical and uber prepared and perfect, there's always a problem around the corner when you're built up with pride. Now, the one thing I wanted to know from you is, why is it they chose to leave out the author's name, "Do as thou wilt"? Like, is there a purpose to that?
That is a good question. I wondered about that, and I don't know if it's to give the yet another kind of minor flaw in Michael Fassbender's character, because, well, if you're this sort of perfect hitman and you're a machine like AI at everything, wouldn't you ever remember this famous quote that you live by? So it's kind of an odd, almost contradiction that he lives by this code, but he doesn't even know who said it. So,
yeah, maybe that's what the joke is, that you're like, oh, I don't even know my platitudes, where they come from.
Exactly. And then there's another thing too that is I forgot to mention, when he's right about to do the hit on that guy who's like dancing with a prostitute or whatever in Paris, he says, the one thing you have to understand about me is that I don't give a fuck, right? He says, I don't care. I don't give a damn about anything. And that's really going to be the key sort of idol that he's erected that collapses. That's going to have to fall apart before, his hardened heart can be softened up a bit. Because what we find out is, by the end of the film, he does give an F. In fact, he doesn't even take out the person ultimately, sort of indirectly responsible for all of this domino series of events, which was the tech oligarch billionaire guy who ordered the cleanup, which included, him and his girlfriend. But of course, the tech oligarch guy had no idea who he even was or who was involved. And that was to keep him as, a few degrees of distance away from the event so that he couldn't be implicated. Also, I was also thinking, I don't know if you saw Candace's recent comments. She doesn't know what the temperature of water freezing is. She thought that, did you see that today? That water. Yeah. But I was thinking too, she should have interviewed Michael Fassbender on ballistics, because he was spitting out all these ballistics facts. And of course, Candace is an expert on ballistics too, because of, anyway, that was just a stupid thought I had, but he ends up running away. We have an odd series of music that plays too. I don't know if this is just David Fincher's personal selection, but we have multiple Smith songs. We have Portishead playing. We have all of these, we have Morrissey. Why he chose these, other than just sort of maybe Gen X, movies that maybe they thought a hitman would like, just sort of oddball music that doesn't make sense with the character. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on the choice of
I actually thought the same exact thing as you. I was like, well, I'm trying to piece together, a good movie, everything's a deliberate choice, when it comes down to it. And I thought, is this choiceless? Is this like, is this marketing? Is this like the people selling the movie going, well, can we have at least like some popular music? And it's like, I wonder how much fight happens in movie making now, where you're like, well, we need a good soundtrack. And they're like, no, but I need music to say something specifically with intention connected to the story. And they're like, yeah, well, can we meet in the middle? That's kind of my first go at it. I saw it twice, and my view of the music didn't change much. I couldn't really add anything more. I didn't see that it added anything more anyway.
Well, one thought I had was, we have multiple Smiths / Morrissey songs that play, and Morris is an oddball because he's one of the few people that has over the years claimed to be asexual. And then people doubt whether he really is or whatever. But I mean, publicly, at least for many years, he claimed, "Oh, I'm asexual," which would mean that from Morrissey's perspective, he's like one of the few, right? He doesn't have the same desires as everyone else. So the many is all, interested in sexuality and getting laid. And Morrissey is in this sense, then some sort of in a certain way, elite in that he's not subject to the desires of most human beings. And so maybe the Fassbender character identifies with that anomaly, that elite perspective that perhaps Morrissey has. And that's why he likes the Smith so much, but that's just speculating.
Well, there is a moment there that actually is consistent with that. When he's waiting at the window for a day and a half or whatever it was, there's a moment where he's looking at people and he moves to the right and there's a couple getting it on and they clearly pointed to him, the camera to him, and he was unaffected by it. He just kind of looked. Like he wasn't like, he didn't like go like, oh, I'm going to maybe watch or maybe this, or he was just like blank face. So that actually did convey a little bit, at least there. But then again, he has a girlfriend, so that kind of becomes inconsistent.
Well, I'm not saying that he's asexual. I'm just saying that he might identify with somebody who has this, totally unheard of. I mean, how many people have you ever heard of they're asexual? Like I've almost never
just
heard
Nick
of this.
Fuentes.
Other than Morrissey, right? It's like maybe a couple of, like it's like 0.001%, right? Would actually so just sort of identifying with oddballs that have no association with the many is all I meant. But so then as he sort of goes on this journey to find out exactly who was behind this hit on his girlfriend and himself, right? He goes back home to his, Costa Rica estate or wherever he's at. And it's been broken into and somebody has basically beat the crap out of his girlfriend and she's on the point of death. And he goes to the hospital and realizes, okay, I'm going to have to track down who's after us, because now kind of like John Wick, right? All the hitmen guild are being contracted upon me and my girlfriend. So this leads him down this path of finding various thugs and taking them out. And then it leads him back to his business, which is a law firm, which is a front for contract hits and assassinations, which I thought was interesting because there's almost kind of hints at like the CIA type of a model, because we know a lot of the CIA is actually just a bunch of lawyers and media people. And so you've got this black dude that runs this law firm that's actually a cutout for CIA assassins. And I just listened to the other day to the John Kiriakou podcast, who's the well-known Greek Orthodox CIA whistleblower guy. And Kiriakou was saying that every Tuesday, the Pentagon and the CIA have these meetings for the kill list. And it's almost like business. It's like a business transaction where the generals and the CIA director and these people, they go on every Tuesday and they discuss and update the kill list. And he says it's absolutely real. It's not a conspiracy theory. There is a ongoing kill list. Of course, we don't talk about that publicly because technically assassinations of political heads are illegal. But, and I think everybody kind of knows, of course, that exists, right? So did you get the impression that this is sort of maybe some kind of a well-connected government associated type of business, so to speak?
Yeah, it was kind of... they did a good job of kind of keeping it a little bit mysterious, where like you could imagine it could be a variety of things. Like it could be that level of agency. It could be a little more private because of like, what is it involving? It was tech or something. That main guy in that apartment was like, something was going on. What I liked about it is you never really introduced the side plot to like, you never magnified it or highlighted the side plot of like, what's this really all about as far as the content. Like we got this sense it was like financial mixed with something else, or it was kind of floaty, but it didn't matter. Like it could be a number of reasons why you have someone killed. I actually kind of thought that was the cool part, where most people would go, I really want to know everything about the situation. Like why this is happening, what's the background, where it was more about people. That's kind of what I got from the movie. It was about the person and the relationships and this, like you said, this redemptive arc of starting in one place and ending in another place as a human being. But yeah, in general, like it didn't really it didn't even occur to me to want to know even more about what the agency actually was.
Yeah, so he takes them out and then realizes that there's other, hitmen of the Hitmen Guild that are tasked with taking him out. So he's got to go and take out Tilda Swinton, Bishop Tilda Swinton. By the way.
Yeah.
And so he goes and meets her at he tracks her down to some restaurant and then, barely escapes with taking her out. Goes and does some other things on the trail. And then he finally ends up at this billionaire's penthouse, I think in New York, and sneaks his way into the condo and confronts him. And this is sort of the climax of the film, is this odd confrontation. And we feel sure that given his activities up to this point, like he has no qualms taking people out. He said multiple times, empathy is the enemy of the hitman. Have no empathy. And then he gets there and he talks to this tech billionaire who's ironically the one responsible for this whole charade. And he discovers that, well, the tech billionaire had no idea who he even was. And I think what we're supposed to learn from that is, this whole movie, he sees himself as an elite. He is one of the elite. He is top tier. Nobody can come into his class of doing what he does. But he's had this whole film to reconcile that with the fact that he made a huge mistake. So he's not as elite as he thought he was. He's not actually an Ubermensch. He's not actually unstoppable, because once the tech billionaire guy says, I don't know who you are. Why would I know who you are or your girlfriend? I was just told there's an extra $100,000 in an escrow account to clean up any mistakes that might lead to you. So how would I know who you are? And I think that hits Michael Fassbender deep in his pride. And he realizes, to this guy, the actual elite guy, the billionaire, I'm just one of the many. And so he reconciles with that, and he basically learns a little bit of humility. He doesn't become an Orthodox Christian, obviously, but he realizes that, okay, I guess actually I was full of bullshit. I was huffing my own toots. I thought I was, the Ubermensch. I'm not. And then he goes back and his girlfriend's healed, and they go off to some other island, and they're laying there, and he basically says, you know what? It's okay, actually. I can accept my fate that I'm just one of the many.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy he killed just before that guy, I think. Wait, was it? When did he kill the taxi guy? Because that was like actually.
It was earlier on.
Yeah, okay, that was early. That was actually a moment where he at least acted. I thought he conveyed it. The actor conveyed it that he was like, I don't know, like if I should kill this guy.
Yeah, we thought he was going to let that guy go, right?
Yeah.
Because the taxi driver guy legitimately kind of seemed to also not really know.
Yeah.
But this is before, he's had his sort of gradual revelation of his own real place in the world, that he's actually another one of the many. And, had he really taken that to heart early on, he might have avoided a lot of these problems and avoided, almost losing the one thing that he cared about, his girlfriend.
Yeah. I actually like that dinner part, because Tilda Swinton sort of like they made a point to show that her enjoyment was like material. It was like nice things, and she was even like, should I have one more nice thing? Like that's all she could grab to, which was like showing the emptiness of this elite world. Is like you're just left with like nice things, like should I get the cake or not? Should I get more of this nice drink or not? And it's like that's all she had. Like when she knew it was time. She actually knew at that point it was pretty much over.
Exactly. Well, and the black guy, the lawyer that ran the hit firm, he also said that basic same line to Michael Fassbender. He said, "You have all the money you need. Why aren't you out just spending it and satisfying your wants? Like, what else do you need to come and take out your boss? Like, why are you even doing this?" So that even the boss of the law firm didn't even necessarily know what all was going down with the cleanup process.
Yeah, and it shows like, yeah, there's an element of like revenge, which, we don't really abide by that as the principle, but at the same time, he's now it's about something more than just that world. So what is it about? I'm not even sure the Michael Fassbender character. I don't know. Maybe you'll disagree. Is there a moment where he switched, where he knew that he switched, or is it this like process of switching his view that only emerges maybe toward the end and looking back? Like, is there a moment, or is he just like in the motion of switching his view on this, but doesn't realize why? Like he's like, I have to get these people. Like I have to do this. But along the way, it's like it's not going the way he wants it to or the way he thinks. I don't know if there was a moment where I saw where it was like a clear switch, like an on and off, or it's like a gradual switch.
I think that there is a gradual process, but it doesn't actually click until he has the discussion with the billionaire, the tech oligarch guy, and then he realizes that he's not who he thought he was. So I think that's the point of that climax scene. There is where he has a change, but there were certain things leading up to that where he was beginning to realize, like, okay, something in my worldview isn't clicking. So anyway, I think that ultimately it is a redemptive story. It's not Christian, but it is surprising given, David Fincher's history of pretty dark films, Seven, Zodiac, even Fight Club is pretty nihilistic, at the end. Yeah, that's my overall assessment. I think it's a pretty good film just for an action hitman assassin type thing with a redemption arc. It's not the greatest film, but I thought it was, given so much slop coming out of Hollywood in the last 5 to 10 years, to even have like a decent film is pretty rare. So anyway, any final thoughts on The Killer?
No, I think I kind of have the same view. It was like well constructed. I thought it was a little too much voiceover, but maybe there was a purpose. Maybe I'll watch it one more time and see. But ultimately, the style of it I liked a lot. Where it's like well contained. It's like I guess that's the way I would describe it. It's not it's not meandering everywhere. It's very focused. I like that where you don't get this sense of like quick shots every time. Like there was more of an artistic flair to it than what you would normally think of like action thriller. It was a lot of different craziness going on. It was very solid. The through line was solid.
All right. Next, we are going to go to the 2018 cult classic now. I think it's kind of entered into that domain. And this is Under the Silver Lake from David Robert Mitchell. And he also did another film that I'm a fan of, It Follows, with Micah Monroe, which is kind of an indie horror film that kind of put his name on the map. That was a hit back in 2014, kind of solidified her career. And he managed to snag Riley Keough, who is Elvis's granddaughter. For those that don't know, people are asking me, who's the blonde chick in the thumbnail? That is Elvis's granddaughter, Riley Keough. She's a model and actress, and that's important for this film because that's also kind of meta, right? So that even the star of the film herself is in kind of a meta way Hollywood music industry royalty, and that will play into some of the, I guess you could say in a kind of a way, class structure, so to speak, like we had with Michael Fassbender's character sort of interacting with the elite above him. And then here you have Andrew Garfield playing the sort of listless LA hipster guy, just sort of partying and smoking weed and trying to get laid. And he sort of stumbles down this rabbit trail of crazy fringe conspiracy stuff that leads him to a conspiracy on the part of billionaires in Los Angeles. And this is, I think, my fourth time seeing this one. I notice more and more things the more I've watched the film. It's more of a satire than I originally realized. I think when I watched it the first time, Tristan and I decoded it, and I thought, okay, this is a lot of, fringe conspiracy culture being sort of stuffed into one, avant-garde, auteur style Hollywood neo-noir, which is what it is. But about the fourth time watching it now, again, I think it's a lot sillier than I really gave much attention to. It's very much a satire. It's very absurdist on purpose, and it's supposed to be funny. Not that I think that it's not revealing things. I think there's a lot of interesting revelations in the film, but we're going to talk about who the dog killer is. We're going to talk about predictive programming, Dave McGowan. This is one of those few films that's actually about predictive programming and all that kind of stuff. But initial thoughts on Under the Silver Lake. Was this your first time seeing it, and what did you think?
It was my first time seeing it. I got the same impression. It had sort of like a wackadoo approach to very real things, which is always in question, like when there's real stuff going on, especially in Hollywood, dark stuff, where, okay, the presentation of it is always absurd, and you're like, oh, it's so absurd. And so when you start talking about that stuff, you're like, oh, you watch too many movies. That seems to be like a theme where something that's true is taken, it's reformatted so that it's absurd, and then so when people talk about it, you're kind of absurd because it's absurd now. But at the same time, it was showcasing. First of all, I lived in Los Angeles for probably 15 years, and it really captured the feeling there. It's very like everything's so bright and everyone's beautiful, yet everyone's dead. So they're the visual of vitality, but everyone's dead like a zombie. It's like beautiful zombies. And everyone's kind of listless too. You know, that character, even right from the first shot in that coffee shop, is like the lostness, the no purpose that you kind of get into in Los Angeles in general, the feeling of it. And it kind of like this kind of hunt for the truth, the mystery of all this stuff gave him some purpose finally. Even though it was absurd and wacky and you couldn't tell which was real. Like there was a couple of weird, strange things like he just happened to have the stacks of like those game magazines that it all made sense, which is funny because I just, had an exchange with Marty Leeds where it's like how much of it is
you were
true?
Actually debating. You were actually debating, and the guy, when he goes and he finds the consprisky theorist guy.
That guy.
That's actually Marty Leeds.
Yeah, and so I think they were kind of making fun of that a little bit too, where there's like, yes, there are people and cults and things that code, wink at each other through code. Maybe they're just trolling, or maybe there's something deeper. But they made that part really ridiculous too. Like it just happened to work out. There was like a map that conveyed, translucent map that worked its way onto other things that were irrelevant. It's like, okay, that's the absurd part. Like how much of this is what he wants it to be and how much of it is actual is another thing that I kind of, which is, by the way, our last movie review was thematic of that Writer movie, where how much of this, of her recalling her experience with her husband was real, and how much of it is added for the sake of the movie itself. And
brilliant! That's a brilliant tie-in to Gone Girl, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the theme you said, right?
I didn't mean
that's
to cut you off.
No.
I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead. It's just that's actually a really good point. I didn't even realize that it parallels really well with Gone Girl.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you play with, right? Where it's like, okay, there's a bunch of real stuff, and then there's the ridiculousness of representing the real stuff. Can you mix them together? Apparently, yeah, maybe the best things are mixed together, Even though I'm like, I want you to tell the real truth, I want you to tell the pure truth of the matter of the underground cults and sex cults and stuff. But, well, it's kind of hyperbole at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of artists want a little bit of ambiguity in their works so that people will continue for the next several decades, hopefully, to try to interpret and solve what it was actually about, right? So that's probably intentional. If you watch It Follows, which is his first film, a lot of people missed some of the elements of that I think were a little bit, that were pretty profound. For example, there's this creeping dread throughout the film, and he constantly references writings of Dostoevsky. So I'll give Robert David Mitchell props that he's apparently read Dostoevsky and understands that, there's more going on with literature than the surface level there is, an important network of symbols and semiotics that's very crucial. And that's what this film is about. And there's only a couple films that I can think of that, I've covered them in my books, that explicitly deal with what's sometimes called predictive programming, this idea that pop culture can encode specific meanings for certain groups of people or for certain elites or to condition the public or propaganda, et cetera. All of that is stuff that we've covered, a zillion times over the last 15 years. But I can think of Utopia. I can think of Argo. I can think of, gosh, I just went blank. But there's a couple other. 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford is about this. That deals directly with the CIA and messages written into literature. So this is not totally out of left field. We can also think of examples where in the history of espionage, you do have sometimes things being put into classified ads as a code from spy to spy. You have, for example, number stations during the Cold War, which would put out these signals that, red number 5, red number 5, red number 5. And then ham radio operators will sometimes stumble across these and they don't know what it is. They're mystified by these, these radio towers that are putting out these bizarre signals and phrases, or, 17, 23, 92. And if any of the gematria bros were to ever stumble across that would drive them insane. Like they would go off the cliff, not realizing that these are Cold War signal number stations that would actually send out the codes to spies in the field. If you watch the show The Americans, which is probably the best TV show ever made, Kerry Russell's character, she goes and she turns on a radio and she writes down every couple of days like the numbers that she has the cipher, the key to decode, and that's Moscow telling her what they need her to do next. That's all real. In fact, the number stations still exist. They're you can look them up. They're pretty well known. There's entire channels that try to decode number station stuff. It's amazing though to me that like a lot of people are really dumb about this. They don't even they act like nobody knows what they are. No, we absolutely know what they are. They're for spies. So there is some truth to this. As you pointed out, Jim Bob, there are billionaire elites in LA that are into weird new age Gnostic cults. We find out that's what's going on in this film. But at the same time, what I liked my fourth viewing of this film was you start to wonder, okay, is Andrew Garfield the dog killer? And you wonder, is he also perhaps having a schizophrenic episode, right? Because it's not like all of these elements are false, but there's certain things that happen throughout the film where you start to wonder, okay, not only is he perhaps the dog killer and he's dissociating, like there's things that don't make sense, that are totally irrational. For example, that map would actually lay over Los Angeles from an old cereal box. It's completely, completely absurd, right? And even if you were, an elite and you were, talking to other elites through these sorts of pop culture codes, like, why would you do something so difficult and obscure as that, right? And what's the likelihood of some random stoner dude actually solving the code, right? Like it's just so preposterous, but at the same time, it has a good bit of reality to it. What did you think about did you get the impression that we're perhaps also wondering, is he schizo?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There were some things that I was like, he's imagining this. There was the girl in the mask. Was that imagined from the start, even on the video camera? Was that imagined? Because she was in his house and just sort of disappeared, never confronted. It was just kind of like, oh, that's there. Then there was the whole, the moment of like the big boss who, kind of represented sort of like a Satan-y character, which gave a nod at like culture creation, satanic stuff, writing songs. I thought that was interesting. I was very happy they put that in at least because the dude's like, tell me, who wrote this song? What did it mean? And it demonstrated that a lot of these actors and these singers are just pawns. They're just used to convey a message. A message from who? From what even? Let's say maybe from what? From what world is this from? And that stuff, obviously, we're all interested in when we tackle Hollywood and the music industry in particular. code using music to convey certain themes, certain messaging to people. That was very clear in this film, and he was like, he wanted to know from a curiosity perspective. It didn't really deal with the fact that it was demonic. He wasn't like it wasn't like a Christian take where it was like fight the demons, but in a sense he did defeat, whether he imagined it or not, this old creepy devil, timeless devil, right? Who's writing, he's playing all. I thought that was actually funny that he's like playing all the songs. He's like, I think he even, I don't know, he must have sang like a Miley Cyrus song at some point.
No, he did. He did like Katy Perry, Miley Cyrus.
Perry,
He did a bunch of Nirvana. Like he went through all of the last, even Elton John, and so he went through like the last several decades of pop hits, and he was like, ha ha ha, I wrote your pop hits. It wasn't your favorite artist. And that's interesting because, you know, the Andrew Garfield character is sort of the arch millennial Gen X kind of guy who is just obsessed with and sees everything through the lens of the pop culture that he's been fed. If you paid attention to his apartment, it was all classic Hollywood movie posters. There was, you know, the classic was, I think, a Paramount or Universal horror films. There's all these Hitchcock films you see everywhere, and the film has a very neo-noir Hitchcock sort of ethos and spirit to it. For example, several scenes are reminiscent of Vertigo, where you have, you know, Jimmy Stewart sort of tumbling down this rabbit hole of conspiracy following this beautiful woman. That's exactly what happens to Andrew Garfield. You have references to Marilyn Monroe films where when he sees the dream of Riley Keough in the pool and she puts her leg up on the pool side, that's directly from Marilyn Monroe's film How to Marry a Millionaire, which is exactly what they're watching when he goes on his first date with her, right? She invites him into her apartment and they're laying there watching How to Marry a Millionaire, and she's got 3 dolls, a black girl, a brunette girl, and herself, right, as these 3 dolls. And underneath the dolls is the code, if you paid attention, of the hobo code. And if you go back to when Andrew Garfield is sleeping with that actress that he sort of dates, she looks over at his bedside and he's got this scribbles of Marty Lead codes that he's got like stacks of like all this gematria and nonsense. She's like, what's all that code and all this stuff? And he's like, no, don't read that. Don't read that. Don't read that. Well, we get the impression that something has perhaps happened in Andrew Garfield's past that has led him to some sort of perhaps break, if you take the schizo line of interpretation, because he's already suspecting that everything is these codes that are talking to him, and the elites have this secret language, but we don't know exactly where it's going yet until we begin to have these interactions with this new girl in his apartment complex, the Elvis's granddaughter, and he immediately is infatuated with her, right? He just thinks she's so beautiful, and she's like out of a movie. She's like Marilyn Monroe. She's like, you know, his Kim Novak, who is the girl that Jimmy Stewart's trying to follow in Vertigo. She's his version of that. And so he's following her throughout the rest of the film and tumbles down this rabbit hole. Again, that's a very common Hitchcock theme of the normal average guy who ends up in this giant conspiracy plot. It's exactly what happens here. So then he gets these mysterious phone calls from his mom, and she always talks about movies. So there's this weird inopportune times where the mom calls and says, oh, did you watch that Janet Gaynor film? Did you watch that whatever film? I taped it for you on VHS. Let me mail it to you, right? And it's all these weird references to movies. The mom doesn't seem to care at all about like what's going on in your life. Are you working? Like, are you paying your bills? And we notice like throughout the whole film, he never pays his rent. I don't know if you noticed that, but even at the end, he doesn't end up paying his rent. He gets out of that and ends up with the hippie chick. But like, so there is a pretty strong, I think, angle to read it as the schizo and he's the dog killer. That's why he's got the dog biscuits. But it's also possible to read it as maybe he's actually onto something, because many of the things that he discovers are his mother. Oh, that's a great point. Somebody says in the chat, it's possible that he's actually just been raised by movies. So he's mothered by the movies. That's his worldview. And that's why he has such an intense break when he realizes that the pop culture that he's formulated his paradigm through is all fake. He was lied to. By the way, this is also real because there was what's called the Wrecking Crew. And a lot of those 1960s bands, if you read Dave McGowan's, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, a lot of those bands didn't even play their own music or write their own music. It was written by the Wrecking Crew. They wrote a bunch of the 60s counterculture, hits. And that's why the bands couldn't even play live, because they were basically mediocre musicians. They weren't very talented. But there were these people who wrote, and this is still true today, that write most of the pop songs, right? It's a handful of people. And so a lot of what we think is going on is actually a lot of fraud and scammery, and it's a big racket. And that might have also caused kind of a schizo break in Andrew Garfield, that most of what he had been taught and told was a lie. And then perhaps he's gone fully schizo, or is he really onto a conspiracy theory?
Yeah. And all of that, you start to show, they start to show that his romantic view of people are not, it's not, like, for instance, the girls, they're like clearly like a little prostitute team, right? That he's interacting with, but he's talking to them like it's like romance, right? Like he buys that one girl the drink at the party, and they went downstairs or something. But he's very naive at the same time, right? It's this weird combo of like, this is a naive guy who's essentially, like you said, listless, doesn't have anything going, doesn't pay his bills. He's basically a loser, but he's the hero, but he's a loser. But he's naive, but he's figuring out the biggest conspiracy that's ever existed in Hollywood. But he doesn't act. It's almost like, you ever see Being There with Peter Sellers, where it's like, he's just this guy.
But I've heard of it.
Yeah, he just kind of falls into things. And he's basically on a wave that he has no real causal, he's not really causing any of it. He just happens to ride this cascade into success and notoriety. And it's similar. It has a similar feel where you're trying to get behind this idea of this guy who's doesn't have anything together, probably schizophrenic, but also uncovering this thing that all of us, the smarter people who have jobs and our lives together, go, no, that's a real thing. Like, the Hollywood weird dark shit is real, but it's depicted in this as this total loser who's a whack job, essentially imagining things, is the one spearheading the investigation, so to speak. And so I don't know, is that just tying things together, or is that a jab at the culture itself that tries to uncover these things? Like, is that a passive aggressive insult? I feel insulted.
Well, I think you hit on one of the key elements of the film that the first 3 times I missed when you were first commenting on it, and then I put it in my notes because this is actually a really profound part when he gets to the point where he's looking at the old Nintendo Power magazines and he's trying to decode the Zelda side of it. Like, he has this conversation with his hipster buddy where they're talking about meaning and cryptography, right? They're sitting there playing Mario, the original Mario, retro Nintendo games. And his hipster buddy says, when we were kids, it was all about games and gaming, and there was still mystery in the world. There was still meaning. There was still purpose. There was still things to be discovered. He's like, nowadays, there's nothing to be discovered. We've already discovered everything. And so now nothing has any meanings, even though we're ruled by cryptography and symbols. And it pans over, and Andrew Garfield is reading this gigantic code breakers book about like World War II cryptography and how to break codes and all this kind of stuff. And this is funny because when this movie came out, I was actually reading cryptography books, I promise you. So I was like, am I schizo, Andrew Garfield? Like, and I just read, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, and we've done some podcasts on it. But I feel like the director, writer, like, they had to have read Dave McGowan or something, and perhaps they've even watched, some of these. Maybe they've read Esoteric Hollywood. I don't know, but we have covered, his films, so it's possible that he came across it on YouTube or something. But yeah, I think that one of the key elements is that for control of man, if you go back to before the internet and all this, right? we were ruled by the government. We were ruled by, very tangible, easily accessible things, right? The king ruled us, the tyrant ruled us, the dictator ruled us, etc. And the internet itself comes out of cryptography. Its origins are Cold War cryptographic communications. And then the Cold War, if you listen to any of our old podcasts that I've done on my channel on this, like the Cold War really built up the technocracy. That's how we have technocracy today, is actually out of the Cold War. The internet comes out of it, all that. And so gaming is now merging with all of that. Entertainment is merging with all that. So we're actually literally being ruled by signs, symbols, semiotics, and cryptography. The future of money, in my view, is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is advanced mathematical cryptography. So the future is all going to be, and is, controlled by signs, symbols, and cryptography. And I don't mean this in the schizo gematria way. I mean it in the actual, real, verifiable, tangible way. And so the film hits at that, and they get to that point in their revelation of okay, that is what's going on. Like, this is really what it is. We are ruled by cryptography. And that's, I think, what makes Andrew Garfield at that point say, well, wait a minute. If that's true, then rich people, billionaire people really do know stuff we don't know. Because everybody else in my circle of friends, except for his sort of halfway aware hipster buddy, who's also kind of nihilistic and doesn't really care about anything. He's just sort of sounding off and, spouting out random ideas. Like, if you remember when he has that conversation when he gets squirted by a skunk and he's washing in tomato juice, and his actress girlfriend says, just tell me, what is your code stuff? What does that mean? And he goes, all right. And he goes into this rant. Like, he hasn't really said much. And then suddenly that triggers him into this rant that, don't you think that if signs and symbols have meaning and there's all this stuff embedded in pop culture, then the people that are running pop culture are actually really powerful people and know more than we do? Is that not possible? And then his girlfriend's like, I don't know. She's like, it's not. He's like, do you think I'm crazy? She's like, I gotta go. Right. So right when he really spills his ideas, his real belief, she immediately dismisses it, and it kind of confirms that, okay, he is onto something, but is he crazy? And that's what I think. The film never really solves that. It never really explains whether he's crazy or not, because the whole thing is like this almost Wizard of Oz style journey. And you have a couple of references to the Wizard of Oz. In fact, when he sees the elite musician's mansion, like, it looks like the yellow brick road to Oz, and he meets the man behind the curtain, right, the wizard. And it's all a lie, but at the same time, he's actually thinks he's figured this out. And I will say, as a side note too, like, the hobo stuff, that's all real. There really are hobo codes. This is a thing that hobos used to do. They would mark places for other hobos to know, okay, this town has, people that will feed you. This town has sells alcohol, because there used to be cities with prohibition and things like that where you couldn't sell alcohol. So hobo code is real. A lot of graffiti actually does have meaning and significance to it. There's hobo codes and graffiti. But again, it's really brilliant the way that they never really reconcile or explain whether or not he's just arbitrarily piecing together the codes. And this is very important for what we do, Jim Bob, in our sphere, because you and I both, we interact with and deal with so many people in this domain, like Candace. It's a perfect example to use Candace, who put together things that have no necessary connection. They're all non sequiturs. It doesn't follow from the fact that there's similarity in the way that you say a phrase that it's therefore referring to the same thing. And you see Andrew Garfield perhaps doing that, where he's putting together things that have no necessary connection. Again, a great lesson for us in the conspiracy media field, because it is so rampant for people to tie together things that have no connection.
Well, it's also easier because there's more data to do it, right? So more things can overlap using the same symbols, using the same phrases, words. Things can be repurposed. You could use a phrase or a symbol for different meanings, different purpose. And so, I think the whole truther sphere is like a little bit vulnerable to this. Speaking of having dealt with a gematria tard this morning, the one thing I keep coming back to, and it's kind of relevant to the movie, is what makes people sort of schizophrenic in a sense, not even in the clinical sense, is that they actually experience numbers and symbols as events. And it's important to distinguish that that's actually a symbol itself is not an event that's happening. It's a representation of something. But you could see how if someone lives their life thinking that the number 11 itself, when they see it, is an event, the 11 is the event. It's not.
Exactly.
It's not an event. It's a representation that's on a sign. The event is you're walking and you saw it, but the event isn't the number. And the same thing with symbols. People start... Candace really is a good example of it, where she's putting together things that otherwise wouldn't have any sort of relatedness, but it's convincing enough to some people that it has relatedness because, lo and behold, it maps on like the map does with the old cereal box, right? And maybe that happens sometimes, but it leads people into these rabbit holes. And ultimately has them chase knowledge, which is another theme in this film, is like there's not really an alternative that's presented that's explicit alternative to knowledge. They don't have the distinction, theosis, that we're actually called to participate in something greater. It's no, chase the numbers, chase the folders, as I call it on my stream, chase more propositions. We got to know the truth, right? They're hiding the truth. There's a they hiding the truth. And then the big question is, what will you ultimately
I like
gain?
Your streams on Hollywood.
What
Please
will you
review
gain
the amazing movies
once
from
you get
our
all the
beloved
knowledge?
Bollywood.
What then, right? And that's the question. Well, in the world, not much actually. You don't really gain. Maybe you gain some power if you have some extra knowledge, but ultimately, what's the goal, right? It's like this. It is this sort of gnosis theme of chasing things, and maybe the knowledge allows you to transcend your constraints, and then ultimately the world itself. The elite are going to be able to transcend hard reality, and they're going to leave us behind to decay, in the wilderness.
No, that's again a really profound point, because the course that Andrew Garfield is on, if we take the non-schizophrenic interpretation, is that he's actually seeking this secret knowledge that he thinks will kind of solve reality and give it meaning, right? He's on to something that nobody else was on to. He's figured out that very wealthy billionaire people have alternative ways of communicating with one another through through pop culture. And if he can solve this, it will basically make him elite and special. He'll have the secret gnosis. And that's spot on, because when he eventually does solve this gigantic conspiracy puzzle, and he goes through all the levels, it's almost like Zelda too, right? Where he's like Link and he's going on this journey. So he's interpreting all this like he's playing Zelda, he's playing Mario. He's Mario goes underwater when they're playing Mario. He goes underwater at the Silver Lake when he's dating the billionaire girl. He goes on a date with her. This whole quest is seen through the lens of classic Hollywood films, Hitchcock, and video games like Mario and Zelda. And then when he gets to the billionaires, and I'm not trying to jump too far ahead, but when he gets to the billionaire guy, the other one that he meets at his little sort of hidden hideaway, his little sex pad hideaway there, he realizes that the billionaire's guy's view is another form of Gnosticism too. The billionaire guy says, "Look, man, good job figuring all this out, but like, we're ready to die because this world sucks, dude. We're going to achieve ascension." And so he finds out that the billionaires believe this ridiculous Gnostic New Age theory that they will ascend in the near future by putting themselves into giant bunkers that mirror the ancient Egyptian pharaohs' tombs. Yeah. So they basically says, "Look, dude, we're Gnostics. We figured out that we can ascend out of this reality, and why not go out with a bang with 3 hot babes, orgies, and watching TV shows.
Very Mormon.
Watching TV shows.
Yeah, I had a little Mormonism nod there too. That was actually an interesting point. He finally that's another part what I thought was like really funny and absurd is like the dude's like, "Can I talk to her?" The girl he was chasing this whole time, and the guy's like, "I mean, I guess." And he starts with a phone, and then it goes to like FaceTime, but it's on this like funny screen out of a suitcase. And then ultimately she says like, "Yeah, I'm doing this. Like, do you have an alternative?" Like, and you realize like his view He actually doesn't have an alternative either. He's like, what? And I think they were trying to convey also that being in the bunker and living your life out away from reality wasn't necessarily different than what he was doing in reality. It's still escapism. It's still like disassociating. It's still trying to escape these constraints. And is there really a difference from that view between being in the bunker or being above ground? Like, really? And then she even says, do you think I'm wrong? And he's like, he doesn't know. He's maybe. He doesn't even have a criterion for it. He's like, maybe. And she's like, well, I guess I'll just give it a shot. It's too late now. I can't come out of here. And I think that's still focusing on the fact that, like, well, we can't, aside from deletion, we can't escape our bodies as they are now. We can't escape the world as we are right now. And that ascension element I think was key to the theme, because that would be the only reason people would be chasing knowledge, right? To escape, to do something that transcends, right? That, because that's kind of like, it's like kind of like Alex Jones talks about too. He's always talking about and clarifying. He's always like, this is what they think. I don't believe this, but it's like, yeah, these people at this level, if money's no object, if terrestrial acquiring territory is no object, if women are no object, like all of the things you want in the world are no object, you have to create a new thing, a new object that actually transcends material. And so what do? I mean, like that's one take. I think transhumanism is another take. I think the idea of like convincing people that they're going to upload their sentience into space, I think they're going to do that. And I think we're going to witness like what's equivalent to like the Haley Bob Comet cult. I think we're going to see the first time, it sounds horrible, but like hundreds of people literally deleting themselves, but they fully believe they're uploading themselves like that. We're going to see that in our generation, unfortunately. But
yeah, that's another good point. Like, when he starts talking to that billionaire guy at the little tiki sex hut, billionaire guy's like, he says, have you not looked and noticed that this world is actually a shit show? It's a giant shit carnival, and any rational person would just simply reject it and be ready to leave.
Right.
And there's a really interesting point when it comes to class analysis, and I don't mean this in a Marxist way, but you already hinted on this with so you have the lower class, which is the hobos, and then you have the billionaire elites, and then you have, Andrew Garfield and everybody else is kind of the middle class. And you see this a lot, like with Eyes Wide Shut, right? Where you got Tom Cruise, he thinks he's in the elite, right? And then he meets somebody who's actually elite and realizes, okay, I'm not actually there. We saw it with Michael Fassbender, right? He thinks he's elite. He meets, the billionaire tech guy, and he's like, I guess I'm not actually one of the elite. Same revelation here with Andrew Garfield. He thinks, I'm figuring this out. I'm going to be one of the special people. I've got the Gnostic secrets. I know how Hollywood's really, LA, everything's really working. I've solved this puzzle as this elite hipster guy. And then he realizes, wait a minute, these elites are actually insane. The hobos are insane. Maybe he's insane too, right? It really got him nothing. And so this whole quest that he was on, it ends with him basically realizing, okay, I almost got myself killed. Maybe I should just hook up with the hippie chick next door, the boomer hippie chick that he was spying on, right? So it's like he really got nothing out of this quest, which you could read that as, is the director, covering up for the real conspiracy that's out there, where you do have billionaires that want to have a breakaway civilization and want to get rid of everybody else. That's real. Or is it just simply a realization that this quest was really got him nowhere? Because if it's all about gnosis, just knowing what's really going on, what does that get you? Are you, you're not a billionaire. You don't have the ability to fake your own death, to have other people assassinated, which is what apparently, if it's not schizophrenia, then the billionaires are pretty much running anything and doing anything they want, including sending the owl girl to assassinate him. The billionaires have the billionaire heiress daughter assassinated in the Silver Lake, right? So, they could pretty much do anything, kind of like Eyes Wide Shut cult can do anything, and they really scare Tom Cruise with that, with that fact. It really got him nothing other than to realize that he's still just a loser, wandering listless hipster dude who can't even pay his rent. So, but again, it's hard to know exactly what's going on, but there's a couple other odd meta things going on. Did you notice Sydney Sweeney
Yes.
with the little cameo?
Yep.
Well, again, so you've got people who become Hollywood elites. You've got people who are, some of the biggest names out there in the world now, right, are in this film, oddly enough. Andrew Garfield is an interesting character in terms of his other roles too, because he was in a really good series that was a British UK series. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-part series called Red Riding. It's really good. I recommend anybody who's not seen it to watch all 3 installments because Red Riding is about Savile and Crowley and the occult ritual murders that have happened in the UK over the last several decades. So if you've not watched Red Riding, I highly recommend it. And I remember watching one of the Criterion Collection videos. They're not that great, but it's if you don't know, like, so they pick various actors, A-list, B-list people, and they take them to the Criterion Collection closet and they ask them to pick out their favorite films. And I think Andrew Garfield is one of the only ones of all of those that I've watched that like didn't just pick pure trash. He actually picked a few decent. So I think he might kind of have some sense of what's going on. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it always makes me wonder, like, when the people that make these movies and the actors, like, how could you be in these series, which are so real or, close to reality? I mean, do they kind of know what's going on? I almost feel like Andrew Garfield myself, like, are these people, like, are they figuring out what's going on? Are they totally clueless? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I feel I kind of feel like you and I we kind of identify with Andrew Garfield in the sense, not necessarily being a loser, but like in the sense of like figuring out like what's actually going on in pop culture.
Yeah, and the question of like whether or not there's examples that are made when you try to figure stuff out, like weird Hollywood deaths, people just kind of go, well, no, this is like a sacrificial system, which is totally possible. But also, there's, the levels of weird deaths that you could point to, not just in Hollywood or in the music industry, but in politics too. But it's like something worth looking at least from the outside, and going, that's a bit weird. Before I forget, I thought it was interesting, and maybe they didn't mean this, maybe I'm reading into it, but the bird, the naked lady who had the bird, they could never figure out what the bird was saying. And I thought that was perhaps a bit of a nod of what you just pointed out, is like ultimately like you're trying to get the truth out. And maybe it's just blurry. Maybe you can't.
It's ambiguous, gibberish, right? Yeah. Because you can never really tell what the bird's saying. I remember at the end of it, I remember thinking, okay, is this saying that maybe his decoding of the meanings was wrong because the bird's not saying anything? That can also, by the way, that can be a reference to Hitchcock. It can be a reference to David Lynch, the Mynah Bird. All that stuff is kind of Twin Peaksy type stuff too. So I think there was some film references with the bird. If you think about the birds, Tippi Hedren, when the film begins, she goes and she's like carrying a bird in a cage to a pet shop. So I think there was some movie throwbacks going on there, but also there could have been some, like you said, like symbol ambiguity. And again, this relates again to the gematria tards, because like symbols are polyvalent. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. This is the root of the word concept fallacy, which is you really need to know the context and the intentionality behind the symbol. And if you don't know that, it's hard in many cases to determine what the symbol meant. So all of the really low tier, like when evangelicals say, for example, oh, you Orthodox, your icons are halos,
right?
And that's Hindu sun worship, because that's a halo is a sun worship. Well, it's a halo that's the divine uncreated energy and light, which is uncreated light. So no, it's not the sun. The sun's created light. We think the halo is representing uncreated light. So it's all like misinterpreting the symbol by assuming that the symbol only has a single reference. So that's the root of The word concept fallacy is not understanding that words and symbols are polyvalent, meaning that they can have different meanings in different settings. And like you said with gematria, it's like the number 11 is a symbol. We're not intended as creatures made in the image of God to be slaves to things like numbers and times, right? Paul says that if you go and look at the Old Testament, the Jews were under a system of pedagogy to train them under the lower beggarly elements to be sons of God, meaning that we can have a calendar and a day of rest and all that, but we're not meant to be slaves to those things because we're the sons of God. And when you think about the occult or the way that the gematriatards, they become superstitious and they become slaves to those things. They're now determined by, the number 11 popped up and
Schizo.
The number 11's after me. The number 11's coming to get me. Right?
Yeah.
They become schizo, which is a form of slavery to things that we're meant to be masters of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Like that, it's so appropriate that this morning happened with Marty Leeds and the gematriatards, because that's perfectly said. It's like you then look at the world, and I actually, just to go back to the parrot thing, the bird, is the movie trained me, the audience watching, to try to keep looking for deeper meaning, to keep finding the new code. Like there was a meta thing going on as well with the audience participating, now going, okay, we're going to uncover this thing. Maybe I'm going to catch something that Andrew Garfield didn't see. So when that bird part happened, I have to admit, like, I was like, wait, I'll figure it out. Let me do it. Let me figure it out. And it was just like, nope. Nothing burger, basically. That's the point, is like, no, this stuff ends nowhere. You don't gain any super amazing knowledge that you, by the way, like you said, the most knowledge that you ever gained, did it get you to pay your rent? Did it, what'd you have to do? You couldn't pay your rent, and you ended up instead shacking up with like a 60-year-old like hippie chick. Like, that's the, okay, exactly, I guess it didn't go anywhere, dude.
Yeah, no, this is the same point that you can make to people that are into the occult and magic, right? Like, a lot of times these people, like, they can't pay their rent, they don't take out the trash, right? They're living in their mom's basement, or they're living in a trailer, and it's like, so you're a 98th degree Master Crowley wizard, but you can't pay your rent.
You can't do anything.
Like, yeah. How come the gods aren't helping? You're a god on earth, like, you can't pay your rent. It seems like you would have some, you would at least have billions.
You ever notice also they're never the ones making the codes? It's like, look, the hobos are doing more than you. They're able to at least craft.
Exactly. Like, hobos have more motion than you do, right? Like, they're going around running shit, like stealing shit, putting codes up, and like, you can't even pay your rent, dude. So again, I think that's funny because there's this symbiotic and parallel relationship between the way the hobos operate, who have basically, they don't care about society. They realize the same thing that the billionaires have realized, which is this society is preposterous, it's retarded, it's a carnival of stupid shit. There's that funny scene when Andrew Garfield is walking next to Silver Lake with the heiress girl, and they're talking about homeless people, and he just basically says, I fucking hate homeless people, man. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to care about them, but they're bullies, man. They're pieces of shit, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the same attitude that the billionaires have, right? The billionaires and the homeless people in this parallel, and they actually work together, right? Because the homeless are actually a spy network for the billionaires, and believe it or not, there's some actual truth to this. If you go back to, for example, the Sherlock Holmes stories, when Tennyson was writing that, there were homeless spies that British intelligence and the Queen, right? The Queen had a massive network, Queen Elizabeth, for example, throughout Britain. She had spies everywhere, and she was actually famous for this. There's that famous painting of her wearing a gown that's all eyes, right? And why is that? Well, she was known for having this vast spy network. And she didn't just have spies amongst, the elites. She had spies amongst the opium dens, amongst the whores, amongst, the homeless. So there's some truth to this, even in the history of espionage in the spy world, that, hobos have also played an interesting role in spy stuff, as have other sort of, outside of the pale of normal society groups, like biker gangs. If you've watched, for example, True Detective, right? Season 1, which is obviously by far the best of True Detective, you know, there's a similar parallel here where both Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are on the trail of this ritual crime, and it's immediately pointing to the elites, the wealthiest evangelicals, and politicians in Louisiana are involved in this satanic cult, and they don't know really what to do with this when they're confronted with being face to face with these billionaires. They end up having that face off with the weird retarded inbred version of the family. Have you seen True Detective season 1?
Yep.
Yeah, so they don't actually end up getting the top tier. They end up getting these like really gross, inbred tard versions of the split offs of the family. But they still kind of came in contact with, on the one hand, the lowest elements of society, the prostitutes, the drug dealers, etc., who know what the real criminals are up to, which is the elite class. And so you find this in quite a bit of the neo-noir detective fiction, and that's kind of what Under the Silver Lake is. It's a neo-noir detective kind of story. Even though he's not Bogart or whatever, he is playing that sort of inadvertent detective character. And then he realizes, okay, whether you're the hobos or whether you're the billionaires, like, they're very similar, and there's really no way to solve the class problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I did like that they did include like a whole tunnel system, which is like the reality part of a lot of these things. It's not even that hard to imagine. It's like, like we said, when you're a special, powerful elite, and nothing of the world that's offered to regular people interests you. What interests you? It has to. You just keep pushing the limit, right? And so, but they did point to that, like all of these other things going on, in that world. And I still wonder though, like, are these directors, like, let's say you like get to meet one of them, Jay, and you start going in on it with the symbols and the background, and they're interested, but do you think it might be the case where they're just like, well, I mean, I'm not that invested. I'm just kind of synthesizing and pulling. Do you think it's more the latter? Like they're just, they're not invested in like the deep truth of the matter. They just know that these are memes and these are things that show up in culture. So they're going to play on them because they have an audience, and they're just going to put them in and just kind of throw them in there. Oh, conspiracies, sex cults, these things. It's like, the question that you asked about Andrew Garfield and other actors, do they really know about this stuff? Is posed to the directors and the writers themselves. Is this real to them as well? Or are they just saying like, well, no, this might be real. I don't really know. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm just kind of commenting on it. I wonder if we'd be disappointed if we got to talk to some of these directors and people where they're just like, I don't know. I don't know anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I haven't met a lot of famous people. I've met just a handful, Hollywood famous level people, and none of them really speak of a high degree of self-conscious knowledge. Mm-hmm. But also the people that I talk to,
cool it with anti-Semitic
aren't
remarks
at the top. So you know what I mean. So they're sort of like. They're not, Kubrick director. I take that back. Like, I mean, in the case of Kubrick, Vivian says that Kubrick knew a lot of what was going on, but that he didn't have a specific spiritual view or anything. It's not like Kubrick thought, oh, this is all a Christian paradigm where it's, we're serving at the high level, the elites are serving Satan or something like that. He's making these films that he does believe expose truth, but she didn't give me the impression that he understood it to be what we would call like a high level Illuminati conspiracy or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say. Like, Jamie Kennedy says he went to parties and, there was people doing drugs and people having sex, but there wasn't, he never saw a Illuminati style thing. But again, that kind of stuff might not even be for that level of famous person. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, mm-hmm. You could be a Jamie Kennedy, or you could be some other famous person and not necessarily be invited to what am I trying to say? Like, Do you remember Dominique Strauss-Kahn? He was that famous banker that it came out in the New York Times that he was attending Eyes Wide Shut parties, as the New York Times called it, right? So, that's people at the level of not a mid-tier actor, actress making $1 million a year. We're talking about the billionaire class. And I think a lot of these films are presenting it as, even in this movie, right, the mid-tier actors and actresses are presented as whores who serve the billionaires.
Right.
And so they're subservient, even with a little degree of, LA popularity. Take the band, right? Jesus and the Vampires, which is this ridiculous, pretty much blasphemous band in the movie. They don't write their songs. They're just a bunch of idiots. And they are subservient to the billionaire guy with the estate who's writing all the pop songs. Right. So even this film, I think, is hinting at that possibility that it's not even the people that you think are the elites. You know what I mean? The A-listers, even like
Diddy.
There's a people above. Yeah, exactly. There's people
Even
above
Diddy.
them.
Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, we got him. That's why it's like, in that truther sphere, it does make sense that like, oh, we're going to get these guys. We're going to expose them. Diddy. Okay. You're saying Diddy's he's the ringleader? Stop. It's like, get over it. Even Harvey Weinstein. It's like that's obviously
even Epstein was recruited into that role through Ghislaine and Robert Maxwell. So Epstein wasn't like this big shot caller. He was just a random Jewish guy who was recruited in through the Dalton School and these different domains to be brought up the rungs of that ladder. But then I think when you get to people like Jean-Luc Brunel, or the Peter Nygaard, in those cases, like we actually have like some legit weird stuff going on with supermodels. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember when that all came out with him? And so I think when you get up into that tier of that billionaire class, you probably are talking about the Eyes Wide Shut stuff.
It is weird though. I thought this was like a comedic thought I had when I watched Eyes Wide Shut during that famous scene of like he walks in, the women disrobe, and it's very calculated and choreographed. It's very strictly choreographed visually. And of course, it's a movie, but I thought this is really funny because in reality, you couldn't get this the first time. So you'd have to have like rehearsals, and all these prostitutes have to show up for rehearsal, and they don't do the right thing when the guy stomps the staff down and he gets mad, and the pianist is like, all right, let's do it again. Like this idea that you actually have to practice these events and get them right when it really counts is funny to me. Like there's like a process to getting it right, and that just didn't make it in the movie. But just hours before, they had to do like a rehearsal for it, like in real life, like if that was real, So you guys took your robes off at different times. What the heck,
Well, another thing that came to mind too, I forgot to mention earlier, was the film begins with this warning that's being scraped off of a window that says, "Beware of the dog killer." And we've been told that, throughout this neighborhood, this area of LA, there's this rash of people that are killing dogs. And we're never told in the film who's actually doing that. It's this weird sort of side quest story that we don't ever get a full answer to. But I think we're supposed to perhaps think that Andrew Garfield is the one doing it. And he's so entranced by the guy who wrote the comic book, the crazy conspiracy theory guy, perhaps because he's the dog killer. And now, why would I say that? Well, one reason that this is just a possible interpretation. I'm not saying I know. I think it's intentionally ambiguous. But if Andrew Garfield is the dog killer, then that would lend credence to the dissociation interpretation of the film, where throughout the film, he's constantly dissociating and tying together things that don't make sense. He's schizophrenic. There's a certain point when he's talking to the hobo king at the end, when he's chained up, and the hobo king says, why do you have these dog biscuits? In other words, I think we're supposed to think the hobo king has figured out he's the dog killer. And he says, I knew a girl one time, and she had a dog, and I wanted to feed the dog. And I thought that things could go back to normal if I could feed the dog and show her that I love the dog. And if we interpret it that way, and we go back and we look at early on, when he sees Riley Keough, she has this dog, and he keeps looking at the dog, and then at one point, when the actress girl that he's dating asks him, what are you looking at the window? And he goes, just some dog. That's relevant because the women in the film are consistently also paralleled with dogs. That's why the women are barking, right? When he goes to the party, the purgatory party, he's in the bathroom and the girl kicks him in the nuts and he falls down. And by the way, the bathroom looks suspiciously just like the Shining bathroom. And he says, why'd you do that? And then all these girls come in and they start barking at him. So they're barking. By the way, that's also in Twin Peaks, right? If you remember, there's multiple sequences. I think Bobby at one point in Twin Peaks, he's stuck in a jail and he starts barking. So this is weird. Like, why are these humans barking? Well, if you parallel the fact that if we read it in the schizo way, if Andrew Garfield has gone crazy, then not only is he the dog killer, he hates and is jealous of the women who are all in his mind whores. And if you remember, every actress that he meets is also a prostitute. Mm-hmm. Because they work for Rising Stars, which allows you to pay to sleep with some B actress, right? Mm-hmm. to fulfill your fantasies, which that part's actually comedic because it's like, okay, who's actually having fantasies of sleeping with, the nominated best, supporting actress of an independent film? Like, probably not many people are fantasizing about that, but that's a selling point for Rising Stars, is that you can sleep with your favorite B actress. But again, that means that not only are they whores, they're dogs. And that's why they're constantly seen barking if Andrew Garfield is schizo. And if he's not schizo, then the actresses are actually honeypot, honey trap prostitutes that work for the billionaires.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't piece that dog part together. I didn't know. I knew there was something that I was missing. I couldn't make the reference connect. I was like, what? Why are they... Is this like a demonic thing? Is this like him schizoing out again where, reality falls apart or whatever? Because that seems to be the case throughout the film. You don't really get a fully integral reality you're ever looking at. It's always just sort of like half pasted together with Scotch tape. And you're just kind of making your way through, which is fun because it's like an adventure. You're like, is this going to hold up? Like, is the whole thing going to... That's kind of the emotion I got from the whole film, is like, you don't ever get the sense that you're of stability ever. It's just kind of moving along and things are falling apart. Yeah.
That's what makes the film, I think, really good, is that you can be watching it and consistently go either way. You can consistently say, okay, he's schizo. Well, now wait a minute. Actually, he's on to something. And I think, aside from how you're supposed to interpret it, it's really relevant again for us in our sphere, because both things can be true. Mm-hmm. You can have an elite billionaire conspiracy that is real, and you can have a bunch of dum-dums in the media who are half schizo, grifters, crazy, COINTELPRO, whatever, misinterpreting and saying crazy shit with half truths. Right. That can also be true. Both of those things can be true. And that helps us to avoid dialectics, right? When we understand that reality doesn't have to be some simple black and white either or. It can be a mix of, look, Candace might have half of her arguments be correct and the other half be insane, batshit crazy. It can be both things. We don't have to pick either ors, because reality actually is usually a little more complex than we want it to be.
Yeah, I actually started thinking about this because diving into all sorts of things, whether it's the Kirk thing or 9/11 or this or that, how all of these impactful events, I always question whether or not it's the wave of media and different takes that makes it occur as a blurred reality where you can't really quite get to the truth, or whether or not there's some spiritual element to reality that like these things happen and they're just they really are that blurred. Like, it's not just the commentary. Like, I like studied that footage, it's pretty dark, but like the Kirk thing, I like looked at it because certain things didn't make sense to me just as an observer. It wasn't just the commentary. Like, I blurred that out and I was just like, all right, just the event. And it was interesting that it's no matter how I described it, it still didn't fully make sense. It wasn't resolved. And I started thinking about this, and I didn't want to think about it too much because honestly, chasing this stuff can make you a little bit schizo. But I came to like at least a temporary conclusion that the actual events could be hard to even properly examine and get to the bottom of, regardless of the commentary you're being fed. Like the event
Exactly.
itself could be really bizarre, and like you'll never get to the bottom of it. And so I don't know. That gives me a little bit of peace of mind if that's true. I don't get the sense of panic. Oh no, I can't know anything now. It's just that, well, dude, if that's the nature of reality, it's not nihilistic. It's not epistemic nihilism either. It's just, hey, that's not what your job is here anyway. So why are you chasing it?
Exactly. And this was something I think that we're talking to my buddy John Adams, who is a fan of Under Silver Lake. We've done, I think, a little bit of decoding of this as well. I think he called in one time for this movie, but he was making a similar point too about this, that like we all kind of go through these phases, and I think one of the things that we have to learn that is that just because you start to learn some truths or you figure out some big things, like you then kind of get this arrogant attitude that you now have the answer for every problem.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is part of the conspiracy. And that's exactly what happens to Andrew Garfield, right? Like in the film, he then he makes everything that happens part of the grand story, the grand narrative, and he's got the answer. But we need to you have to have a mature, balanced perspective of this stuff, which I think takes many years. And so if we want to be as charitable as possible, hopefully Candace will, maybe wise up a little bit and get some humility about this. Like, just because you've discovered a few things in the conspiracy world, you can overdose on red pills and think that you're, the grand master conspiracy decoder and you figured everything out, and you just really, like Andrew Garfield in the film, like you in your mind have solved, Mystic Quest, but to everyone else, it's like you haven't borne any fruits. It's actually coming off and looking ridiculous and crazy. And the key thing here, just like with Michael Fassbender, is like it's humility. So if we want to interpret it in the best possible way, then what Andrew Garfield learned at the end of the story was some degree of he's still a loser, but he at least learned some degree of humility, that like he's not going to solve mystical quest. He's not going to fix the world and expose the billionaires and save, LA from whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's learned that like there's limits to, you can't be delusional about this.
Whoop. I think he just boomered out. There he is. He's back. Oh, no, I'm back. Now you got to switch me. They're messing with us. Truther time. They're messing with us, you guys. They figured us out. You disconnected. Up. Are you there? Is he there? Oh, no. Try again. Row. I guess the conspiracies are real. Maybe they are real. What do you guys think? All right, let me see if I can reconnect here. Not found. Okay. Not found. Oh, maybe it timed out. Who knows? Well, we were saying that conspiracies aren't always real. But maybe they are. You know what I mean? Maybe they got to us. You know what I mean? Yeah, who knows? Maybe they got us. Maybe the bagels got us.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
Subs Toe, what does this mean? What does this mean? They're coming for me. They're coming for me. All right, let's see. Hold on. It's okay. It's all right. Okay. Here we go. Hold on. All right, hold on. Copy and compose and go over there and paste. And let's see if we can do this again. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay. All righty. There we go. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay. Here we go. There we go. All right.
All right, we almost made it an entire interview, Jim Bob, without any collab cam problems, and then we had one little hiccup at the end. But I was just telling the audience that so Andrew just went on Joe Rogan, so yeah, maybe we'll go check that out after this, and then
Yep.
maybe Andrew or somebody can put in the comments underneath, hey, have Jay and Jim Bob on as well.
For real. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate it. Let's 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks, do it again. I think people love this, and it's fun for me because it gives me like a reason to watch movies with some purpose as opposed to just kind of passively looking at it like imagery. So,
Somebody said the real dog killer was Hassan Piker.
Yeah, totally.
Because for those that don't know, Hassan was had an electrical shock collar on the dog in his background, and ever since then, everybody sort of ragged him as a dog killer. So maybe he's the real under the Silver Lake dog killer. But
yeah,
that was a funny comment. So we got some super chats. I'll read them here, guys. Be sure and follow Jim Bob on his channel. Let's see. Dire Mania, $3. When are we getting a shower stream? Go to my OnlyFans, and that's a joke. I don't have OnlyFans, so don't flag me, algorithm. You'll get a bathtub stream. I've done a lot of debates from the bathtub on Discord. Sincere Hypocrite. No, we did him. Excuse me. Rui says for $10. It's always nice to see you two guys collab. Appreciate that, Rui. Shoreline, $20. What's up, Shoreline? Thank you so much. Doesn't say anything. Bob Dog, $10. Black Bag with Michael Fassbender is an underrated spy film. You should check it out. I saw it when it came out in the theater. It was a very prescient, in the sense of predictive programming, revelation of things relating to drone attacks in Russia and in Ukraine. Did you guys notice that? And then, of course, we had the drone attacks by the West in the Ukraine, and the attempted drone attack on Putin's own house, which is odd because there were some similar types of things in the film Black Bag. It is a pretty good spy film. If you didn't see it, I won't spoil it, but you do have the indication of high level corruption in British intelligence, which I appreciated in the film. Anonymous, $5. Thank you for another great conversation. You guys should also stream on Rumble. You can now Bitcoin. You can send super chats with Bitcoin. Yes, I saw that. I was very excited to see Rumble going that direction. I'm going to try to do more of that in the future. It's just, when you upload videos to Rumble, it takes forever.
Yeah.
So I might try to figure out a way to dual live stream. But the problem is, I think I would have to get over on Streamlabs or something to dual stream. Have you tried dual streaming on Rumble?
No, I usually just I'll only upload things that are highly TOS violations on YouTube. I'll throw them to Rumble, but I kind of don't really invest too much in Rumble.
Jatuan, $20. Jay, hope you're doing well. I was wondering if you've done any analysis on the Truman Show. Yes, I did a podcast. It's a very monotone, quiet sort of podcast. It was one of my first that I ever did, but it's still on my channel. You can find it if you type in Jay Dyer Truman Show. Jim Bob, what do you think we should do next? Any ideas on films? I know I've suggested several, but you can feel free to suggest what you'd like.
Yeah, I'll think about some. I think the Truman Show is great because that's another Gnostic-y one where
that would be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun to revisit because
it was 10 years ago when I covered it, so it's ripe to be.
Yeah, we should do it. Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll just text back and forth some alternative seconds. But let's at least know we're doing that. That'll be fun to watch again. Actually,
yeah, there's a lot of films that would go well with Truman. Have you ever seen Dark City?
I don't think so.
That one would be an interesting parallel. It's kind of a Matrix-ish type movie. I think it came out a year before or right at the same time as the Matrix, but it's also in many ways very different from the Matrix. But it's parallels perfectly with Truman Show, so it might be good to do Dark City and Truman Show, but we'll see. Maddie says Andrew Wilson has been on Joe Rogan now. Jay, we now need you on. Well, guys, feel free to comment below the episode to have Jim Bob and Jay on as well. Kabang says for $2, Infernal Machine. This is another good, weird one to watch. Okay, I'm not familiar with that. Infernal Machine. Write that down, and we'll put that in the pile of potentials. Shoreline.
Someone said Saturday Night Fever or something is pretty funny. Just like totally not.
Well, I am going to have a podcast with a director and producer who's done he's done 2 or 3 Travolta movies. He's done 2 or 3 Nick Cage movies and a couple Robert De Niro movies. So Yvonne Gautier will be coming on with me. We've gotten to be buddies. He invited us to come speak at his film festival. I might be in his new movie, so we're looking forward to that. I will be the comic relief. I'm not going to say what the movie is, but
not a villain.
Cross your fingers. Yeah, hopefully I'll have a upcoming movie role in the near future. And then Yvonne is going to come on a podcast with me, and we're going to discuss his canon, his career of films. He's done several interesting films. And anything else, Jim Bob? Anything else on your mind?
No, that's it. I'm pumped to watch another movie, and we'll chat in between, and then let the audience know which ones they have to do their homework watching.
Well, since we've been talking Gnostic stuff, and you just had these Gnostic debates, Dark City and Truman Show would be perfect because they're 100% Gnostic movies.
There you go, guys. That's your homework. Truman Show, Dark City.
All right, guys. Be sure and follow Jim Bob. Subscribe. His channel is linked, and support him. Also, remember to head over to chalk.com, CHOQ.com, the best of supplementation on the internet. You can get a hold of that performance stack or that male vitality stack. Use the promo code JAY60Life. That's J60Life. And we will see you next time.
I'm still streaming, Jay, but thanks.
Right. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on. Great conversation, a lot of fun, and we'll see you in a week or two.
Okay, man. God bless.
Later.
Okay. Dokoi. Well, there you got it. There you have it, folks. There you have it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Don't forget to hit a like. Yeah, let me read the super chats from you guys, though. I don't want to leave you hanging. Right? 12 monkeys would be cool. Yeah. Stubbs to toe. What does this mean? Yeah. Make new goal. Thank you so much for that. 20 big buckaroos. The fact that these cults have to hide from the face of the public, it shows that Christ won. They have to hide from him. Christians created society, and its people know it's evil regardless of their faith. That's true. The fact that it's so, they hide it in the shadows. I just wish they hid more things in the shadows, like, rainbow parades. Culper Spy Ring, thank you so much for that, Giovanni. Swarm Pants. One of the best shows. One of the best talk shows there is. Late Night, I thought Late Night was dead. It's not. Swarm Pants. You guys ever see him? Swarm Pants? Well, YouTube it. You'll see. You'll see. Swarm Pants. Hey, Howling Man. Check it out. Get these per violators verts, JB. Yeah, get them all out of here. I miss the old ortho thugs. Well, we're back. Season 3 is upon us. Thank you, everyone, for your super chats. Susan convinced me. Crockett J's favorite character of the 80s. I'm sure Jay's one of his favorite characters is Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China. I want to watch that. I might swap out Truman Show for that, honestly. Don't you think? Big Trouble in Little China? Yeah, I think so. Thank you for the chats. The Freak, appreciate you. Austin Titilio, thank you so much. Carefree, I can't. You got to ask Jay, dude. I don't know why. How'd you get banned? Meg Bob says Twilight series. That would be funny, forcing Jay to pick whether he... forcing Jay to choose between Edward and Roberto or whatever his name is. What is his name? Dead Guy and Beast Guy? Truman Show's been done to death by now. Yeah, let me actually re-examine that. Big Trouble in Little China is hilarious. And I don't remember really what happened. I like the idea of decoding something that has no real explicit symbolism in it. Like we have to force it. That would be funny. I'm gonna suggest it. Cause yeah, you're right. Truman Show, it's like how many times? How many times can we do it? You know what I mean? Anyway, that's cool. Just got some text from Rachel. Proof. Andrew finally on Rogan. What does this mean? Well, that's pretty awesome. It's unfortunate he's just going to get more attacks too, though. So, you know, it goes hand in hand. That's awesome. I can't wait to watch that. Can't wait to see what comes up in that combo. That's crazy. That's crazy. Napoleon Dynamite? I think I watched that recently. I was like, yeah. Let's get that sort of... It's got like a college-y... It's got a student film thing going on. Peterson is live. Poor Peterson. I just released a video of him. I had to include the whole thing. I was editing it. I was just trying to trim fat. And I was like, you know what? Get through it. It's about 2 hours, just under 2 hours. And I just think there's so many important blunders in that. Yesterday's stream got over 10,000 views. So thank you, everyone, for watching and sharing it or whatever reason. I don't know why. I can't really figure it out, honestly. I'm trying to learn, like, what does well and why, and I honestly, sometimes I just have to be okay not knowing. You know? Sometimes I'm just like, all right, maybe I just don't know. Candace Owens is live. Okay. You guys, okay. Text messages. It's crazy, though. I got to hand it to her. Imagine doing a live stream and you have 130,000 people. Like, how do you even talk to them? I did, Kevin. I spooked them. They're all like, what's going on? What's going on with my creation story? I'm hurt. Good. Got nothing. You guys got nothing. Huh? Ask me what? Huh? Viral? Well, you know, I have my own trajectory and I'm totally fine with it. Honestly, if I could choose, we can't all choose, but if I were to choose between a 40 degree incline and a massive sort of like overnight viral sensational thing, I would definitely choose the former every single time. It's not even like this. I don't know. Let me weigh it out. No. Even someone saying go on Joe Rogan, to me, it's weird. It's weird. When someone says that, I go, I don't know about that. Hey, wouldn't you love to go on Rogan? I'm like, I don't know. You know, I honestly, I gotta say, I don't know how much I would offer that. I don't know how much I would offer. I don't know what I would offer. It might be just like, what do I have? What is the don't belong thing? What is that thing where people don't belong? You feel like you don't belong? I forgot what it's called. Tony went live? Well, I have that with certain things. Where it's just like, well, do I really belong here? Do I? Brady says, watch the show Altered Carbon. I did watch all of that, yeah. There's some hidden messages in it, but its backdrop is transhumanism with clips in people's heads. The MC tries to stop the technology. Yeah, I watched that whole thing. It was good. I think that was based on is it a proper comic book or... I like comic books. I do. It's not autism. Yeah, imposter. I have that. For some things I do. It just doesn't make sense. Some of these things don't make sense to me. It makes sense. It totally makes sense to me. Andrew's on Joe Rogan. It makes sense that Jay... It doesn't make sense that Jay hasn't been on Joe Rogan. That doesn't make sense to me. But me? You got to do something like a little bit special. Like, I know I'm special. I'm special. I'm saying to get on Rogan, you got to kind of do something. You got to like do something special. There's got to be like this thing that happened. It's like, oh, that thing happened and here you go. Like, that's not, I don't have that. Companion? What is, Companion. Well, you know what else is out? Megan Part 2. Megan Part 2. Megbob Part 2, where there's a psychotic robot doll that kills everybody. It's like transhumanism Chucky. It's like Chucky evolved. How do you super chat? Well, a good way to do it, Scott, is the best way to super chat, honestly, is bobchats.com and you write a note. Why? Because YouTube doesn't take all of your money then. What did he do that was special? He kind of broke through a certain he broke through a certain what would you call it? I don't even know what you call it. Like a sector. It was like a sector breakthrough. Where it was like a provocation of several different sectors of entertainment and politics. So red pill, Christianity, and debating, basically. He broke into that and disturbed it. So it was like actually a disruption. So that's what he did that was special. Andrew disrupt something. It was a disruptive thing. Doody-daddy. 5 minutes. 8 more. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 8 more. 5 minutes. 8 more. The Jubilee All-Stars about to combine powers. Man, the Jubilee All-Stars are just the worst. It's like, you know what I watched again? I went back. I wanted to watch like Mike Jones, Inspiring Philosophy, talk to that weasel deconstruction zone on Tim Pool. And I was like, man, that deconstruction guy did not do well in that exchange. Not at all. It was weak. Be better? Yeah, no, I don't, like I just said, it's just, it doesn't, I don't belong. It's not, it's just like, you know what it would be? It would be like if I suddenly was on Joe Rogan or something that big, it would be like, oh, Favor was called in. You know what I mean? It's like, I know, I have a sense for these things. Like I said before, it doesn't make sense that he hasn't been on. It doesn't make sense he hasn't been on. That's what I'm saying. I love IP, yeah. Yeah, he's really good. He's a nice guy. I met him in person. I'm glad I met him because I'm very aggressive online, so I'll make fun of him in a squeaky voice. But he needed to know I'm cool with him, and I like knowing that too, that he's cool with me. would be like being on the news for no obvious reason. Yeah, exactly. So that's not even why I want to break in, you know? Like if I were to be known for something, I would hope it was like a skit I did with Ortho Thugs, like with Tony. Like something funny was made. You know what I mean? But then again, it's like if you make something awesome, isn't it better from a creative view to have the thing you made on a screen and not you on the screen? That's how I look at it. That maybe that's why it doesn't occur to me personally like, oh, I need that. That's a goal of mine. No, I'd actually much rather Joe Rogan share a piece of art that I made or a skit that I did or a song or something as opposed to me. I'm a talking guy. I'm going to talk. I'm going to sit and talk. I'm going to sit in the smoky room and talk, and you're going to try to force me to take more drugs or something like this. You're going to be like, here's a bunch of drugs. So that's how Joe Rogan occurs to me. He's like, hey, look down at the table. See that powder? You should do it. You should do it. Just do it. There's mushrooms in the refrigerator. You want some water? Jamie, get him some water. Get him the one with the thing in it. What thing in it? Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. What? No. No thanks. So yeah, if it were, you know, my goals are more oriented toward making things. I like doing live streaming with you guys. I'll do it as long as I can talk. But my goals are not really oriented toward me being the thing. I want to make things. That's what I want to do. I want to make stuff. It's extracted from a poisonous. Look, they synthesize is crazy. They like synthesize a poison dart frog and a B12. Do you guys know that B12 rattlesnakes exist? It's evolution, bro. It's fine. No, put this. If you put this venom in your eyes, you see clearer. Yeah. Anyway, it's just really not my world. Like that's just the reality. It's not my world. My world's like, that's why I was drawn to Tony. Like that's my world. It's like whacked out, made up, weird skit world. That's where I am. That's where I am. I missed the Rogan when he questioned the moon landing. Well, yeah, he did speak to he was like, listen, the people in charge, tell me the truth. I won't tell anyone. And then suddenly he changed his view on all. I used to have a saved rant, actually, of his. It was so concise and eloquent, and it was good rhetoric, and it made the moon landing look so insane. He did it. It was a rant. It was perfect. It was like 30 seconds long, and it was just like, pfft. This is my world. This is just not my time yet. This is my world. I don't go to their world. You understand? They come to my world. Okay? Now, when is Jim Bob going to be on these channels? No, that's the wrong question. They come to me. Joe Rogan did like one of my posts, though, so he knows I exist. So that's a start. You know what I'm saying? Wait, is Tony streaming and in my chat? Is he doing the thing where he's pretending to be on my stream again? So meta, that guy. So meta. So many prayers I have for him. Yeah, that's a real question. You couldn't handle streaming? Oh, that was quick. Well, I got some work to do, y'all. I mean, I wish I could just pull a marathon, but I've got some skit making to do for Friday. How exciting. I'm holding your burrito hostage whenever you're done dunking on yourself. Okay. All right. Burrito. Tonto, you're not going to go live, Tonti? You can't handle it? Well, what can I say? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do this? All right. Let's look at, actually, just before we leave, real quick. Let me look. 50. What the? Holy cow! That is a big
The other guy
super
says
chat.
Ortho Thugs is top tier, better than Rogan.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, our show's better than Rogan. It's just about, like, reach. It's about reach. That's what it is. You scarted? You're too scarted? What did you scart yourself? What did you scud your pants? What happened? What happened? You scud yourself? Huh. Anyway, what is it? What do we got? Oh, that's pretty good. 1.3 posted today. Okay, that's good. All right. I don't know what it is about the live stream, though. That Cope stream, it's over 10,000 views. Sick, bro. Sick. That's big for me in one day. 10,000 views. A live stream is big. Look, a 6-hour live stream with 10,000 views in a day, that's retorted. Thank you, Brennan, I mean. Brennan Bell. Don't scud your pants. Don't scud yourself, okay? Do we got this guy? I wonder if we got Marty in the comments freaking out. His cult members always come after me too when I do stuff like this. Once in a while I'll pick on Marty and his nonsense. Pick on him and he'll be like, freaks out. It's good. You should make some of these people feel uncomfortable because, they are telling lies. They are leading people astray. So just don't get caught in their webs. I'm about to hit 30K. One day, Tony. One day. A pizza party? Yeah, I'm going to do a party. Big celebration. I'll have Tony over. I'll have Tony over for digital dinner. What happened to Zach Hubbard? Oh, he's still doing it. I think those people make their money betting mostly. I think that's the gig, right? It's like a betting world. Yeah, some of Marty's cult got mad at me today. Yeah, why not? Because of the 3931 in your name, Abby? They got mad at you? Standing for Truth. I actually texted him on, I don't know if he responds on X, because I was going to talk to him before my debate. So I would definitely go on his channel and chat about, atheism, and we don't have to get into a debate about Calvinism. I think he's a Calvinist, but I would love to talk about evolution with him on his channel if he wanted to do that. Because they hate it. Like, the opposition hates it when Christians get together and talk about evolution. They hate it. They're so mad. Now they're really mad because, look at me. Look at me. I'm the guy who's going to keep kicking your evolution biologists around like a schoolyard bully. They got to hate that. Anyway, I'm hungry. Hang out with my family, you guys, rest my voice, and start working on creative stuff for this week. It's already Tuesday. I have to draw a political cartoon still. Planet P he's the one I like the most out of all of them, Brady. You know why? Because at least he doesn't just sit there and say stuff about me or how my face looks or my life or whatever. At least he tries to, like, respond to the words coming out of my mouth. At least he tries to. Hey, JB. Hey, Joe. It's good to have you on the show. Why don't you tell people what you do? Pretty much. Yeah. All right. Well, let me look at where to send you guys then, because Tony's hanging out. He doesn't feel like it. That's fine. Take a rest. Make some things. Tony, you should definitely make more things, though. You know what I mean? You should make skits. You should make short skits. You should make long skits. You should be always making something for your channel. Always. So funny, dude. Your little celebration video when you hit the goal is so uncomfortable and funny. The guy in the jacket. Well, that's you. I don't know why I said the guy in the jacket. It just seems like a different person. You're all just in the back smiling all weird. I mean, you're a real weird dude. You're all scrambled. But you're still in the dish. You're still on the plate. You're a bit scrambled, but you're still on the plate. Look, I didn't... No. Nobody's sending you back. Excuse me. Excuse me. Fearless Truth. Wait, Fearless Truth is the ortho guy. He's that guy. Fugazi. Everyone likes... I mean, that's the one black guy I really like, aside from Chad Jackson. Fugazi. I like that guy. It takes a refined plate, I know. A refined plate to hold the scrambled eggs. I know. All right. I'm getting out of here. Tired of sitting in front of a screen. Hope you enjoy the stream. Thanks for the support. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Who knows what I'll talk about? Who even knows? Chad, that's actually who should be on. Look, I'm going to make that happen. Now that I have friends in high places, he needs to get on Steven Crowder, not really Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, at this point, in a sense, getting on Steven Crowder insofar as political pull is probably a better conversation than Rogan. So we got to get Chad O. Jackson on Crowder. That's where it's at. Everybody make that happen. All right. What are the upcoming movies? Well, we said temporarily Truman Show and Dark City, but Truman Show might be... what was the other one? I might want to do Big Trouble in Little China. Just because it's stupid and funny. So, anyway, you have friends in middle places? All right, that's it for me. I'm out of here. So are you guys.